Imagine the softest sheets you've ever felt. Now imagine them getting even softer over time. I'm here to tell you about Boll & Branch and how you can discover this new level of softness with their iconic sheets. In a recent customer survey, 96% responded that Boll & Branch sheets get softer with every wash. They source the rarest 100% organic cotton for an incredible softness to start. Then they skip the toxins and harsh chemicals for a natural feel unlike anything else, and it all comes together with their signature weave. This special design feels buttery, breathable, and unlocks new levels of softness with every wash, and they stand behind their promise of softness. With their 30-night guarantee, you can wash, style, and sleep in their sheets for an entire month. If during the 30 nights, you don't love your sheets or feel them getting softer and softer, you can send them right back. No questions asked. So head to bollandbranch.com for 15% off your first order with code Odyssey. That's BOLL and branch.com. Exclusions apply. See site for details.
My 13-year-old acts like a puppy again. Almost overnight, she's a different dog.
Perfect poops.
When people switch their dog's food to the farmer's dog, the effects can seem like magic. But there's no magic involved. It's simply real meat and vegetables with all the nutrients dogs need, instead of highly processed pellets. No tricks, just smarter, healthier pet food delivered in packs portioned for your dog. It's amazing what real food can do. Get 50% off your first order at thefarmersdog.com/nomagicFifty.
When the whole family comes together to watch the game, nobody wants to miss a second of the action to run to the grocery store. With Instacart, you can get all your weekly groceries in as fast as an hour. Less time shopping means more game time. Let's go. Visit instacart.com to get free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. $10 minimum per order. Additional terms apply.
It's time. It's time. Time to get in the zone. Time to get in the zone with the 49ers Web Zone. This is the No Huddle Podcast with Al and Brian.
What's up, faithful? You're listening to another episode of the 49ers Web Zone No Huddle Podcast, a part of the Odyssey Network. I am Brian Renick. He is Al Sacco. It is a new year. The 49ers get to play the Rams this week. But more importantly, the 49ers led the NFL in Pro Bowl selections. And I think that's our jumping off point today. Al, any surprises for you when it comes to either A, Pro Bowl selections on this team, or B, players from this team that didn't make the Pro Bowl? There's one that I'm thinking of, but I don't know that it's much like it's a conversation, but any surprises for you?
I don't think so. Maybe I was a little surprised with Javon Hargrave, maybe a little bit, but maybe not. I don't know. I figured they were going to have like 8, 9, 10 guys. They're loaded. They have so many guys having a great season. And shout out, you know what, man? Shout out to the 49ers fans who absolutely showed out in the fan voting. I'm assuming it's mostly 49ers fans. I'm sure casual fans are going to vote for who they think should be in there too, but this was mostly Niners fans.
Yeah.
And so the top 5 teams in NFL fan voting, from what I read, the Niners had 1.14 million votes. The next team to have the most votes was the Dolphins at 895,000. Brock Purdy had the most votes in the NFL of anybody. And then I think McCaffrey was second. And then I think Tua was third and Kittle was fourth. So they had 3 of the top 5 guys and Kelsey was 5th. I mean, what a great job by Niners fans to really go out and show and support their team. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah. And, honestly, like you said, Hargrave, maybe a bit of a surprise in terms of if you just look at the raw stats, there isn't a lot that jumps off the page for him this season. But it's hard to argue that the guys that made it don't deserve it. This is a team that is loaded, as you said. But all those players, there have been teams that have been loaded that haven't performed like the 49ers have. So kudos to the players for putting it out on the field for fans to vote for. I think for me, the one that I guess you could call a surprise, but I really don't think it's a surprise, is Brandon AIyuk. I think he definitely deserves a Pro Bowl nod. But if you look at the 3 guys that were starters, which is all that they announced. They didn't announce alternates and things like that. But when you look at the guys that did make it ahead of him, it's AJ Brown and it's Puka Nacua, and I believe it's Justin Jefferson. I'm not positive.
No, I don't think it was. Jefferson? No, it wasn't Jefferson.
It can't be Jefferson because he missed a lot of time. There's one other where I was like, okay, that, because while Brandon AIyuk has had a breakout season, and we've talked about it, he still doesn't have some of the, again, stats that jump out at you. Outside of, if you dig a little deeper, I think his yards per catch is incredibly impressive, just because he has put up 1,300 plus yards on way less receptions than any other guy ahead of him on that Pro Bowl selection. So I think that was a bit of a snub. And I also think Mitch Wishnowsky, it's hard to talk about punters because it's not sexy.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Mitch Wishnowsky has had an incredible season. He has been an absolute weapon for this team when it comes to flipping field position. And, I don't think he got the recognition that he necessarily deserves. But also when you're talking about a team that doesn't punt very much,
you don't punt that
because
much.
They're scoring all the time. Again, it's hard to get that recognition.
Yeah, and Dallas's punter made it. And I do want to go over the guys.
CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is the other guy I couldn't think of, and he absolutely deserves a spot.
Yeah, and I do want to go over the guys who made it, but we'll start. Yeah, AIyuk was the snub to me. And when you said you dig deeper down in the stats, so yards per catch, he's first, 18.3. First down rate, he's first, 81.9. PFF grade, he's second. 127.2 passer rating when he's targeted, that's second. 20 plus yard receptions, that's second. Wide receiver total EPA, that's fourth. And I saw those stats from Kevin Kruger on Twitter. Mm-hmm. He's also I think I saw this on ESPN. So the highest yards per route run seasons by a wide receiver since 2007. Tyreek Hill this season at 4.1. Steve Smith 2008 at 3.9. Tyreek Hill last year 3.3. And Brandon AIyuk this year 3.3. So for him not to be in the Pro Bowl, I mean, he's got 1,317 yards receiving. Now I understand that he's sixth in the league, and it is tight in the NFC. So you mentioned Lamb, who absolutely deserves it. 122 catches, 1,651 yards, 10 touchdowns. He deserves it. AJ Brown was a beast for a lot of the season. He deserves to be there. Puka, nice story. 101 catches, 1,445 yards. He's he's breaking records for a rookie receiver. He gets the nod there. So I understand those three guys. And then there's the snubs. AIyuk is one of them, like we mentioned. AIyuk has 1,317 yards, and he's the only guy there in the top 7, really. Well, in the top 6 he's got 101 targets. Everybody else in the top 6 has over 154. Yeah. So there you go. Like what he's done so much with his targets. And two other guys who really have a case at receiver that you can make the case just like AIyuk is Amon-Ra St. Brown, who has 112 catches and 1,371 yards. And DJ Moore in any other year, 92 grabs and 1,300 yards with 8 touchdowns. He could have been there too in the NFC. So it was really tight. So AIyuk deserves it. But again, with those other guys, can you really say those other guys don't deserve it? I think I want to say I saw alternates and he was one of them, but I could be completely wrong. Yeah. But I think he will at least be an alternate. And I saw Bill Barnwell put an article out on ESPN where he was picking his all pros. He picked AIyuk as the second team all pro. Yeah. So maybe that accolade still to come for him. But I agree. If I had to pick one snub, it would have been AIyuk.
Yeah. And you think about, again, what is the Pro Bowl? It's fan voting. So,
it's a third of it.
A third of it. Right. But you look at Nacua and you look at AJ Brown, and for both of those teams, it's really like, if those fans are going to vote for somebody, it's going to be those guys on their squad. Right. And so, I think that definitely has something to do with it. But like you said, Nacua, it is a cool story. And, he is likely, he's going to play on Sunday against the 49ers. He needs 23, I believe it's 23 yards to break the rookie receiving record. So I imagine that, within the first 2 series, they're probably going to try and get him those 23 yards and then get him out of the game. Because just like the 49ers, the Rams are going to be resting players as well, including their quarterback. So, a cool story. And, when you have cool stories like that, sometimes you want to reward them in a way that, says, hey, kudos to you for that season. And he will, the problem for him is that he's likely not going to get offensive rookie of the year, because that's probably going to go to CJ Stroud, and rightfully so. CJ Stroud's had a hell of a season. Yeah, and so again, that's going to be a hell of a,
that's going to be an interesting race. Yeah. Which way people go with that.
So this is going to probably be the one accolade that he gets. So again, kudos to him for literally coming out of nowhere and really lighting the league on fire.
Yeah. And that's the only credit we're going to give the Rams on the show.
Yes.
That's all you're going to get.
Selling a little or a lot? Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage, to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's here to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. From their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system, wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout. 15% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. And sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast.
With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays, find bets in the new Explore tab, make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/stream and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Tennessee, and Virginia. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342 in Arizona, 1-888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana, 1-800-522-4700, or visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas, 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana, visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland, visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia, or call 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.
All right, so the guys who actually made the squad, 9 of them make it. We'll look at everybody. Brock Purdy makes it. And for me, again, when you have a team that's really good and you have a quarterback that's really good, as a fan, it should be cool. It should be fun for you. And the 49ers, I know it was the Niners and the Dolphins. I want to say there's another team or two in there that haven't had a Pro Bowl quarterback in a really long time. There were like 3 or 4 teams that haven't had one. The Dolphins hadn't had one since 1995 with Marino. Somehow Tua didn't make it last year. Somehow Tyler Huntley made it over Tua. I don't even know. I don't even know what was going on.
Well, Tua had all those injuries last year. I think that's part of it.
Yeah, but Tyler Huntley, he played like 3 games.
No, I'm not saying I agree with it, but I think that's that was a weird
why
one.
He did it.
Yeah.
So but he made it this year.
And you have to actually, what I would, and I don't know the answer to this. I wonder if if they went to him and were like, hey, are you even willing to play? And he's like, no, like
That could be.
not after the season that I had. Like, I'm just going to rest up and prepare for next season. So
we'll go to
because that Tyler Huntley pick was weird.
So strange. So strange.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the Dolphins, it's been since 1995 with Marino. The Niners, it's been since 2002 with Jeff Garcia. So they finally have a Pro Bowl quarterback. Awesome. He's had the season we've been over it a million times on the show. Deserving. I hope the Niners are nowhere near the Pro Bowl because they're getting ready for the Super Bowl. But
exactly.
Absolutely deserves it. Kudos to Brock Purdy. And again, congrats to 49ers fans. You got a QB.
Hey, it's been a long time. Like,
really long.
It just enjoy it. Like you said. And that's the other thing is, I think a lot of fans are going, and I'll be perfectly honest, I kind of feel this way as well. And I think you do to a certain extent. Like this season is going to feel like a failure if they don't win the Super Bowl. If they make the Super Bowl and don't win against the Ravens team that absolutely stomped a mud hole in them on Christmas Day, like maybe that is a little understandable, but it's still a giant disappointment. But if you just step back and look at the season, it's hard. The conversation around like what constitutes a successful season it can be really toxic when it comes to fan bases because, the saying goes, right? As Herm Edwards tells us, you play to win the game, right? Like the ultimate goal is to win the Super Bowl. But if as a fan, your view is every season is a failure that you don't win the Super Bowl, that's a really sad existence, right? Because very few teams win the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? And so I think my hope for 49er fans is that they take a step back, regardless of how this season ends, and just look at this regular season and go, this regular season was a ton of fun to watch. We saw Brock Purdy grow before our eyes. We saw an offense that was historically good. We saw a defense that took a bit of a step back, but not a giant step back. They're still a top 10 defense in the league.
Mm-hmm.
You got to watch Nick Bosa. You got to watch Fred Warner. You got to see Jair Brown take the field. You got to see Deommodore Lenoir grow. You got to see Christian McCaffrey. You got to see George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. You didn't have to sit through quarterback injuries. You didn't have to sit through major injuries to important players. Like, this was an incredible season, and it was a lot of fun to watch and a lot of fun to cover. And I hope that other fans feel the same way, like I said, regardless of how the season ends up, because it's really hard to win a Super Bowl. Should this team win the Super Bowl, it's one of two teams that should, right? It's the 49ers and the Ravens, and everybody else is chasing them. But regardless, this was still an incredible season.
So Purdy's the first of five guys on offense. Trent Williams makes it for the 11th straight year, I think. He's made it every year since 2012. But you know what I didn't know about Trent Williams, Bry, is he wasn't a first-team All-Pro until he came to San Francisco. He had second-team All-Pro.
I didn't know that either.
I had no idea. He had a second-team All-Pro. I just found that out now. I was looking up how many Pro Bowls he's had. He had a second-team All-Pro in 2015. He's been a first-team All-Pro the past two seasons, and he probably will be again, I would think, for the Niners. So he makes another Pro Bowl, and what can you say? One of the best tackles in NFL history.
Yeah. And just a freak at the position. And that's the thing that I love about him is just watching him play. Like, he moves like someone that his size shouldn't ever be able to move. It's a marvel every time you watch him, and he's 25 yards downfield running stride for stride with, Christian McCaffrey or Deebo Samuel. Like, this dude's like over 300 pounds. Like, what? How does he move this way? So yeah, he's a
freak. He's an absolute freak.
Yeah. There's one Trent Williams, and he will be rewarded for that after he retires for sure. First ballot all the way.
Christian McCaffrey makes what will be his fifth Pro Bowl. Yeah, fifth one. He made it with Panthers in 2019, and then 2000. No, wait. This is all screwed up. I'm looking at Pro Football Reference in 2022. Looks like it's three different seasons. It's not. So this is only his third Pro Bowl.
Oh.
In which, again, you think McCaffrey, he would have been in more, but
he had
a phenomenal year.
Two injury marred seasons.
Yeah, and those were the seasons, that he had 3 games and 7 games he wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't make it his first 2 seasons. Somehow he didn't make it with 1,965 yards from scrimmage in 2018, but he makes it this year. He's also going to probably win Offensive Player of the Year, which will be his first. And we'll talk a little bit about it later, but, getting rid of the myth that running backs don't matter, because he might be the most valuable player in the league.
Yeah. Hard to argue that he isn't the engine that makes this offense go. It's again, I still can't believe that the Panthers allowed the 49ers to trade for Christian McCaffrey. It's just
highway robbery.
Time I think about it, I'm like, what? Who allowed this to happen? Thank you to whoever it was. But
the entire NFL would go back in time and
100%. 100%. Yeah.
All right, Kyle Juszczyk is the 4th player on offense. Kyle Juszczyk is going to be an 8-time Pro Bowler because
the most for any fullback in NFL history.
Because he's kind of the only fullback anybody knows, maybe. Out of the 10 of them there are in the league, but no, he's a terrific player. He means a lot to what they do in the run game.
Yeah.
I just feel like any year Kyle Juszczyk plays, he's going to represent the Pro Bowl at that position and the team at that position. So,
yeah, Nick Wagner posted something. I retweeted it because Kyle Juszczyk quote tweeted it. It is 8 Pro Bowls, and that is the most by a fullback in league history. So kudos to Juice. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's all-time stuff. So whatever. I don't care how many fullbacks there are. He's doing things nobody's done before, and he's been doing it at a high level for this team for a while. So
let me ask you this question: does Kyle Juszczyk, is he a fringe Hall of Famer at this point, just based on how successful he's been at that position specifically?
It would be an interesting argument because of what he's done at that position, but he doesn't have like Tom Rathman numbers, right?
No.
So I don't think, I don't think he's prolific enough at the position to be considered for Hall of Fame, but for what he does, he's had a hell of a career. He's had a hell of a career.
Absolutely.
There's no shame in that. There's no shame in that.
Absolutely.
All right. The 5th guy on offense, last but not least, who I want to spend a little bit of time talking about, because what's going on, again, we talk about these great seasons. We talk about appreciating these players. What you have right now at tight end is an all-time guy, a guy who I think he's at 6,274 receiving yards, which is 4th all-time for the 49ers. He'll probably have to get to 8,000-ish yards, I think, for the Hall of Fame. I think he's got a little work to do, but what you're seeing is a guy who's on his way there. He makes his 4th Pro Bowl, and listen to some of this stuff. Only 3 players in 49ers history have had 3 or more 1,000 plus yard receiving seasons. It's Jerry Rice, T.O., and now George Kittle. The Niners have had 33 individual receiving 1,000 yard seasons, and those 3 guys have 20 of them. Rice has 12, T.O. has 5, Kittle has 3. I'm going to venture to say Brandon AIyuk is going to join them at 3 next year should he stay healthy. And Kittle right now, I went and looked it up because I'm like, what is he doing in terms of all-time tight ends? Because I am starting to think about him with Hall of Fame now. He's currently 3rd all-time in receiving yards per game for a tight end at 64 yards. He trails only Travis Kelce and Rob Gronkowski. So he is putting up, again, numbers with some of the greats. If he has that longevity, he's been in the league, 7 years? Mm-hmm. So again, you give him a 10-year career, even if he gets another 1,500 yards in the next 3 years, which he'll get more than that. Again, if he stays healthy, he'll be at that 8,000 yard range. And I really think you're seeing a guy who, again, perennial Pro Bowler and is going to be a Hall of Famer for this team.
Yeah. And, I think in the thing that is impressive about Kittle is you have to, there's a little bit of context there as well. The numbers are impressive, but the numbers are even more impressive when you realize how often he is used in the blocking game and how integral he is to the blocking scheme and the running game for the San Francisco 49ers. And I think that's where maybe he doesn't get some of the really elite numbers, if you will, the Kelces, the Gronkowskis, things like that. But I do think that there is some context there in terms of his ability as a blocker. And it's not just that he's good at it, it's that he's great at it. And it's not just that he's great at it, it's that he wants to do it. So, he's not this guy that's like, hey, get me the ball. It's get me the ball when you can. If not, I'm going to block my ass off, because that's what I enjoy doing more than catching the football and catching touchdowns. I genuinely believe that. I genuinely believe that if George Kittle had a game where he caught 3 touchdowns and had 2 pancake blocks, and you asked him what he enjoyed doing more, I think his answer would be the 2 pancake blocks. I really do. I really think that's what he loves doing. He's one of those guys that's like, listen, when I'm blocking, the ability for me to impose my will on another human being is just, it feeds into that joker on his arm, right? Like, that's the mentality that he has. And so, I think when the conversation starts to swirl after he retires and they start, he is eligible, I think part of the conversation is he's got these great receiving numbers. They're not as good as maybe some of these other guys, but man, look at the way he blocked as well. And I hope that goes into part of the conversation for his candidacy.
Yeah. Now, defensively, I want to start out with 2 guys who they got as free agents, because typically in the NFL with free agency, right, they kind of say sometimes it's fool's gold, right? Some of these guys are free agents for a reason. Guys get overpaid. A lot of guys don't live up to the contracts. The 2 big contracts the Niners have had last 2 seasons are in the Pro Bowl, and they've been huge parts of the defense. So we'll start with Hargrave, who, like we said, the numbers didn't jump out initially, but he's got 7 sacks, which is good for an interior player.
Yeah.
He'll make his 2nd Pro Bowl overall this year. He made it in 2021. Somehow did not make it with 11 sacks last year. I don't know.
Too many guys on that line.
I guess so. But yeah, so his 2nd one, and the Niners paid him a lot of money, but it's paid dividends in year 1.
It's interesting you bring that up. You bring up free agency, and it right now I just started kind of going through. The 49ers don't typically hand out a lot of money in free agency. They really don't. They did that first off season after Kyle and John got here, right? The Quan Alexander contract, whatever. I can't really think of a time where they brought in a player via free agency and that player was a bust and really hurt them financially. Outside of Quan Alexander, I think.
I was going to say Quan Alexander.
And the problem with Quan was just injury related. It wasn't play related. He just kept getting injured, and that was
McKinnon. McKinnon was a bust one too.
Right, but also
injury
again,
related,
just couldn't. Injury related. Couldn't recover with the 49ers from that devastating knee injury. But the 49ers don't typically make splashes in free agency. And when they do, they tend to be intentional about it. And last year it was Charvarius Ward to shore up the secondary. And this year it was Javon Hargrave to shore up the interior of the defensive line. And both of those signings have been absolute home runs from the jump. And so again, just another feather in the cap of this front office that, you don't find them typically spending a lot of money on players that don't make an impact, which again is part of why they've been able to build the type of team that they've been able to build.
And then the second guy is somebody who Steve Wilks said today he doesn't think there's another corner in the league playing better than Charvarius Ward. And he has had a career season. I believe this is his first Pro Bowl. He has 23 passes defended, which leads the NFL and is a career high for him. He never had more than 11 in the season. So he's doubled that this year. And he has 5 interceptions, which is a career high for him. He never had more than 2 in a season. Actually had 5 going into this year. So he's matched his career total in picks this year. He has had a tremendous season. Again, you go out and spend money on a corner. You want him to be a number 1 guy. And that's what he's been for this team.
Yeah. And not only that, but it has allowed them to really play with the other side of the field and find their best combination because they know that Mooney's got it locked down at one spot. And so they've been able to rotate through with Demo and Ambry Thomas and Isaiah Oliver and Sammy Womack, right? And they've been able to withstand some of those injuries too, to Womack, to Luter, because Ward has been consistently good and hasn't missed any time, which again is a huge bonus as well. So again, very, very purposeful in their pursuit, very purposeful in the fit and just knocked it out of the park.
And then the next two guys who make it are the cornerstone guys, the homegrown guys, the absolute stars that they drafted. Fred Warner makes his third Pro Bowl. He's got 2 AP1 team selections. That'll probably be his third for that too this year. Mm-hmm. He finishes, it's going to look like he's going to be 5 off his career high for tackles. 2.5 sacks, his career high is 3. So he was close to that too. And what else did he get? Another forced fumbles 4. It's a career high for him. He had 4 interceptions. That's a career high for him. So just another, elite season for an elite player.
Yeah. A third rounder out of BYU. The one thing that I'll always remember is Kevin Clark of the Ringer, who does a lot of stuff. He used to be the Ringer NFL show before it was guys like Steven Ruiz and Ben Solak, who I still like Ben. But before them, it was Robert Mays and Kevin Clark was the Ringer NFL show. And now Mays is at the Athletic and Kevin Clark is still with the Ringer, but just doing other things. But I remember that draft that Fred Warner was his like mid-round draft crush. And he was very, very high on him. And when the 49ers selected him, he was very high on that selection as well. And it's been just an incredible player. I think off-ball linebacker, and we're going to talk about this in a bit, off-ball linebacker tends to be an area that a lot of teams won't sink very many resources into that position. Yeah. And guys like Kyle Shanahan love that because they absolutely take advantage of it. And the 49ers do, because I think Kyle Shanahan is the coach and he recognizes if you've got good off-ball linebackers, you're going to have a good defense. And the 49ers have 2 of them. And it's just they're just fun to watch. They're just incredible players. Fred Warner is such a unicorn at the position, just with his physical, his physical measurements, right? He's 6'3", right? He went to BYU as a safety, still played safety at BYU. And then his last year there played this kind of weird hybrid safety linebacker position. And then the 49ers drafted him and made him a full-time linebacker, but he's tall for the position. He knows how to cover because he started as a safety. So he's an incredible linebacker in coverage, which you don't always get. And if you look at teams, like look at the Eagles, right? Look at the Eagles defense and how much it's dropped off. It's dropped off because the guys that they had playing linebacker last year all left and they didn't put any resources in there. And now teams just attack the middle of the field on them and they've got nothing to do. Yeah. They have no way to defend it because the guys they have on the team aren't good. Right. So again, just another position where, I think the 49ers are ahead of the curve on that. And I think you can attribute that to Kyle Shanahan. And then the last Pro Bowler is Nick Bosa, who is going to make his 4th Pro Bowl. The only year he didn't is the year he tore his ACL in week 2. He started the year slow for his standards, only 3 sacks, but he finished with 10.5 after the bye. He looked more like Nick Bosa in terms of getting home. He has 53.5 sacks in essentially 4 years with the 49ers. Because again, he only played 5 quarters or 6 quarters, whatever it was in 2020. So headed for his 4th Pro Bowl, again, headed for what looks like, an elite career. Yeah. I mean, what else is there to say about Nick Bosa? He's one of the best defensive players in the NFL. He's top 3 edge rusher in the NFL, and the 49ers just signed him long-term. So again, a guy that you're going to get to see and root for, and a guy that's going to be a cornerstone of this defense for years to come. And, barring injury, you just assume every year he's going to be a Pro Bowler. And you mentioned the off-the-ball linebackers. So, we're looking at the guys who made the Pro Bowl here. We're looking at how the Niners play. And I think it was Daniel Jeremiah who said this. I have to try to find it now. All right. So we said it's fun to look at how San Francisco and Baltimore built their teams. One thing that stood out to me is a commitment to off the ball linebackers. So many teams have devalued that spot and they've invested in it. Those 4 dudes, meaning Greenlaw, Warner, Roquan Smith, and Patrick Queen, are incredible players, and they shut down the middle of the field for the run and pass. And it got me thinking a little bit about the Niners. And I remember when this regime took over, I mean, there were a lot of people who took shots at San Francisco because they did pay Kyle Juszczyk, who's been a big part of this team for now?
7 years, 8 years. And again, he does the little things for them. His numbers have gone down, but again, there's a lot of mouths to feed now. It's not 2018 anymore, or 19, where he's going to touch the ball almost 40 times. He does the little things, and he's been a terrific player for them in the locker room and on the field. And then they go out and they don't spend high draft capital on the linebackers, but you don't have to when you hit like they have. A third rounder for Warner, a fifth rounder for Greenlaw, but they've paid both of these guys to stick around. And the other position that gets devalued that the 49ers have clearly valued, and Kyle Shanahan has tried to value this position for a long time, it's running back. We've seen in the offseason, Josh Jacobs is going to get paid. Saquon Barkley couldn't get paid. There's another one Austin Eckler. These guys couldn't get paid. 49ers go out and they give up draft assets, and they're paying for Christian McCaffrey, who has transformed their offense in a lot of ways. Now, not everybody's Christian McCaffrey, but still there are some elite backs out there. And when you look at what Shanahan and Lynch have done since they got here, they've been trying to get this guy. They were interested in Le'Veon Bell. They were interested in they signed Jerick McKinnon to be hopefully this kind of back. Yeah. Tevin Coleman they paid. They've drafted running backs constantly high. They haven't found that guy. They found a lot of gems late, but your Trey Sermons and your TDPs. Joe Williams was the third or fourth, but these guys didn't work out. But Kyle Shanahan has been trying to find his Christian McCaffrey until he finally traded for Christian McCaffrey. So you see these guys at these positions, and even kicker, they paid Robbie Gould, and people are like, "Oh, you're paying a kicker, or whatever." Well, dude didn't miss a field goal in the playoffs. So they value sort of these, I don't want to say strange positions, but they pay positions that maybe other teams don't.
Yeah,
and it's worked for them. They've reaped the benefits. Kyle Juszczyk has been a consistent performer since they've got him. Robbie Gould made huge kicks for them. And then they invested in Jake Moody again. We'll see how that goes. Christian McCaffrey, it took a while at running back, but now Christian McCaffrey has put them in a position where maybe he's transformed the offense. And Kittle and Greenlaw just shut down the middle of the field. They're absolute difference makers on the defense. So I just thought it was really interesting that Daniel brought that up, and it got me thinking the Niners have done this a little bit differently in some ways.
My 13-year-old acts like a puppy again. Almost overnight, she's a different dog.
Perfect poops.
When people switch their dog's food to the farmer's dog, the effects can seem like magic. But there's no magic involved. It's simply real meat and vegetables with all the nutrients dogs need, instead of highly processed pellets. No tricks, just smarter, healthier pet food delivered in packs portioned for your dog. It's amazing what real food can do. Get 50% off your first order at thefarmersdog.com/nomagicFifty.
Nobody wants a surprise in their jelly donut. It's toothpaste? That's because the middle is the most important part. At Graybar, we're at the middle of electrical and datacom jobs across the country, connecting installers, facility managers, and business owners with smart solutions for their most challenging projects, which means stocking and delivering crucial products on time and on budget with no surprises, thanks to our nationwide logistics network. Yep, Graybar does that.
Presented by T-Mobile, the official wireless partner of Odyssey Sports. With an awesome network and great savings, there's never been a better time to join T-Mobile. Visit your neighborhood store to make the switch today.
Yeah, and you could argue that the Ravens have actually sunk more resources into off-ball linebacker than the 49ers have, if you're not including salary, because the 49ers paid Fred Warner quite a bit of money. And then they paid Greenlaw as well, but not anywhere near what they paid Fred Warner. But Warner was a third rounder. Greenlaw was a fifth rounder. But Patrick McQueen. Patrick Queen was a first round pick for those Ravens. And then they traded a second, and I believe it's a second. It's either a second and a fifth or a second, a third, and a fifth for Roquan Smith from the Bears. And then they extended him. So they paid him as well. So you could argue that they have invested in that position just as much. And again, you look at how much they've invested in running back, or when it came to either drafting guys or bringing guys in. They've had Mark Ingram. They've had, the draft pick they had this year who got hurt, Keaton Mitchell. They brought in other backs. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that Greg Roman was their offensive coordinator, and they were running a very run heavy scheme. So that made sense for them. But if you look at it from the 49ers perspective, you're right. They do invest in some interesting or maybe less popular positions. But again, I think that stems from Kyle Shanahan as their head coach, because, they invest in fullback because a fullback is important for his scheme, for the outside zone, for the run scheme that he wants. Running backs are important because he wants to run the ball. He's not one of these new school coaches who is desperate to throw the ball because that's what the league has gone to. He wants to run the ball and he wants to impose his will on you. He's very old school in that regard. And so he has invested heavily in the running back position, sometimes to the detriment of his own, his own legacy, if you will, because he gets pretty hammered by a lot of people about it. I did, like, when they drafted TDP, I was like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? But, that position is integral to the success of his offense. And then, like I said earlier, with the off-ball linebacker, again, Kyle Shanahan loves to attack the middle of the field, and he loves to attack weak linebackers. It's like his favorite thing to do. And so I think because of that, he knows that if you've got good off-ball linebackers, it makes it easier for you to play defense. And so he looks for that for his defense. And I don't remember who. I know I read this somewhere, and I hate when I do this because it sounds like I'm just making it up. I'm not. I did read it somewhere. But one of the player was interviewed, a 49er player, and I don't know if it was a former player, current player, but one of the things that they said was they were surprised how involved Kyle Shanahan is with the defense and how important the defense is to Kyle Shanahan. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. And it's, again, because he wants to attack weaknesses. That's what he wants to do. And so for him, he wants to make sure that what he likes to do, other teams cannot do to them. I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. And so that is why they emphasize things like off-ball linebacker and, edge play and rushing 4 and covering with 7, right? Because that is what he thinks is the hardest to go against. Yeah. And if you look at the teams that this offense has struggled against, it's teams like that, right? It's teams like the Browns who rush 4 and cover with 7, and they had problems with that. And, you could say the Vikings, but what the Vikings did was more about confusing a young quarterback and using a lot of disguised coverages and switching things, at the snap to kind of change the picture on the quarterback. And I think that's part of what, why Brock struggled. But I think the more he sees that, the more he'll be able to process through that. And the Ravens kind of do the same thing. But yeah, I think it comes back to who the coach is and what he thinks is difficult to go against. That's again why he brought Robert Saleh in, because he always said the most difficult defense that I always had to go against was Pete Carroll Seahawks, Legion of Boom style cover 3 defense. That was always the most difficult for me. So I wanted to implement that on my team as well. So again, just another way that Kyle Shanahan has his fingerprints on this whole team, not just the offense.
Yeah, and usually our second show of the week, we will preview the game. What are we? We're not going to preview it next week. I mean, come on. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about Sam Darnold?
We're talking about Sam Darnold's audition for a QB1 position somewhere else in the NFL this season. This is his one opportunity to put something on tape to then go into the marketplace and be like, see, look what I can do. Look what I can do.
It's such a weird feeling right now because you're so amped up and then everything's going with the season. And then I thought they were going to have to play this week. Yeah. I thought for sure Philly was going to win. And even Detroit, I kind of thought, maybe they're going to beat Dallas. I did not think there was any way in hell the Niners weren't playing it. So you have you're all pumped up, you're ready to go. And then it just comes to an abrupt, just a halt for 3 weeks. I don't really know what to do with myself. I'm kind of I just got to sit and think about whatever the division game is going to be. So this week almost feels like a glorified, I don't know, like a glorified preseason game or something. Yeah. It's just, I just want everybody to get out healthy. And then it's another week of nothing. And then I gotta find something to worry about. So I'll worry about, are they going to be rusty? Worried about Purdy. I was kind of hoping Purdy would, again, they treat it like a preseason game where he'd at least play a few series, throw some easy passes, just get out there. get rid of the ball quickly and go home type thing. But
yeah,
they're going to rest him. I get it. You don't want to put your quarterback at jeopardy, but we've just seen, again, I guess I'll worry about it when it comes time to worry about it. I would worry about rust right now. That's the only thing that would get in my head with resting a lot of players. But also, if somebody got hurt, you never forgive yourself. So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
It is. It's a double-edged sword. And the other difficult part, and Kyle Shanahan kind of talked about this. He said, if you rest a bunch of players that you normally have playing, well, then you put your other players that aren't used to playing in a weird position, and then they start kind of pressing, and then that's when you see more injuries, right? When players are pressing because they're not used to being in that position. And you got to have your whole team healthy going into the playoffs, because you never know when an injury could happen. And for the Brock Purdy situation, to me it makes sense because Trent Williams isn't playing, and Jalen Moore is still currently in the concussion protocol. And so what you're looking at right now is Colton McKivitz at left tackle and Matt Pryor at right tackle, because John Feliciano is dealing with a back injury. So more than likely Spencer Burford is going to be in. And you don't want to put
Brock by that line. Yeah.
No, not at all. Not at all. But here's the other thing. And this is where it's still a little, like, for me at least, like, Sam Darnold could be important in the playoffs, right? If Brock goes down, you need Sam Darnold. If Sam Darnold gets injured in this game because the offensive line can't, block their way out of a paper bag, that's not good either. You still have Kyle Allen, but I have no idea what to think of Allen. So it's a really unique situation that they're in. But on the other side, the Rams are resting players too. Carson Wentz is going to start for them. Matthew Stafford is getting the day off. Like I said earlier, Puka Nacua is playing, but I assume that once he gets the record, they're probably pulling him out. No Cup. Yeah, exactly. And that's interesting to me because they don't have the 6th seed locked up. They could end up the 7th seed, but I think if you're Sean McVay and you go, well, if I'm the 6th seed, I go to Detroit, or if I'm the 7th seed, I go to Dallas. I'm not afraid to go to either place with my offense. So I think that's part of the calculus for him. But I am interested to see what Sam Darnold does in this game. I do think Sam Darnold is going to view this game as an opportunity for himself to, like I said, to put some good play on tape, because he is a free agent after this year. And maybe he wants to come back to San Francisco on a much cheaper deal than he has now, but I doubt it. I think he probably still wants to have an opportunity to start. And, I assume he and his agent were like, yeah, let's go to San Francisco. Brock's coming off an elbow injury. The likelihood that you're going to get to play is probably pretty high. You might as well go there. And then you get to be a part of Kyle Shanahan's system, which, tends to turn, shit into diamonds, if you will, sometimes. Yeah. And, you may end up being able to reap the benefit in free agency next year. And it doesn't look like that's going to be the case for him, but he still probably has, he's going to have some suitors. And if he plays well in this game, that's something that he can point to. So I am interested in that. This game doesn't matter. In fact, I don't even know if I'm going to watch the game because I have a softball clinic at 1:00, which is when this game starts. And in my head, I'm like, nah, that's okay.
There's no fantasies over. Yeah. The Niners don't have a meaningful game. It's a rough weekend. Two of the big games are on Saturday, right? And then the Sunday nighter is big. Yeah, it is a rough weekend. I'm just gonna have to bet on stuff to make it interesting. But I don't even know. They're not smart bets, so I won't do that much. You know what I mean? Because you don't know who's going to show up. If the Ravens are going to play people, you have no idea. Yeah. So week 17 is weird. The one thing I did realize, I was talking to my wife the other night, and I realized that we will be in Vegas for the divisional round of the playoffs. Oh. Our youngest will be in Vegas for a cheer competition, and we will be there. We're flying home on Sunday, and I'm like, oh, that's gonna be the first weekend that the 49ers play. I'm like, damn it. You got to figure out when that game's on. You got to get like YouTube TV on your phone or something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I
mean? I have Hulu. I have Hulu with live TV, so I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about is am I going to be on the plane when it goes? So we'll see. But yeah, that's my biggest concern moving into the playoffs is I don't know where I'm going to be able to watch that first game, but you bet your ass I will be watching it.
Well, we got a couple weeks to figure it out. We're trying to book an old friend for a guest early next week. We'll see if we can lock that down. Maybe have some other couple guests because we're going to run out of shit to talk about the next 2 weeks probably.
Yes,
so,
we are. Yes, we are. We
we'll
have nothing to preview next week at all.
We'll see if we can get some people on the show for you guys. So, but until then, thanks for listening. We're out of here.
Later.
9 on 3. 1, 2, 3. Hey!
.2400 Sports is an Odyssey company.